to the next point.
Towards
We should ensure
us.
whatever we say is clear.
That means work is being done. We can see that it is in opposite direction.
Hello learners, welcome to the Ministry of Education Kaduna State e-learning radio and television program. Welcome to the geography class. My name is Wezi Jeremiah Akos and I am your geography teacher. Our topic for today is the environment. During the course of our lesson, we'll be looking at the definition of the environment, the types of environment, the components of the environment, interactions between the components of the ecosystem, also known as the environment, domains of the environment, problems facing the environment, and importance of the environment. We'll start by defining the environment. Now, we know that the environment is where we live in, but what is the textbook definition? We say that the environment is the surroundings or conditions where a person, animal, or plant lives or strives. It includes all the factors, external and internal, living and non-living, which affect an organism. The organism can either be plants or animals. Now we'll look at types of environment because we're looking at where plants or animals live, so we would have different types of environment. What then are the types of environment we're talking about? We have three major types of environment. We have the physical environment, the social environment, and the cultural environment. What is a physical environment? The physical environment includes plants, animals, climatic factors such as temperature, wind, sunlight, soil, and rocks. The physical or biophysical environment is the biotic and abiotic surroundings of an organism that influences the survival, development, and evolution of the organism. When we say biophysical, it's a combination of biology and physical. So when we're referring to biology, it has to do with plants and animals. Plants and animals in our environment, like we've listed, rocks, sunlight, all these are biophysical. So under the physical environment is the things that you actually see in the environment. Let's look at the second type of environment, which is the social environment. When we say social environment, what are we talking about? The social environment is also called the non-physical environment. It is the immediate physical and social surroundings that people live in. What do we mean by physical and social surrounding? It relates to the environment created by human activities in changing the face of landforms. So the activities that humans participate in that affect the landforms. Such activities include agriculture, our going to schools, religious activities. Like it says here, it says it includes the built environment in terms of schools, houses, roads, airports, seaports, bridges, playgrounds, stadia, markets, banks, shops, farms, etc. All these have to do with the activities that the human being or the animal participates in. Let's look at the third environment, which is the cultural environment. The cultural environment refers to the cultural and social aspects of a given society from its very nature. It includes religious activities in churches, mosques, and then of course the way of dressing, hairstyle, and also our varieties of food. Like in Nigeria here, when we talk about our cultural environment, we have different tribes. And in our different tribes, we have different languages. We have different traditional foods. Where in the north, we have tuwo and okra, dry okra soup, karkashi, kuka. When you go down south, or in the east, they have banga, they have ogbono, and so many others. And when we have hairstyles, we also have different hairstyles. When you see somebody dressed in a particular way, we say, oh, if you see somebody wearing agbada, you say, this is a Yoruba person. These are examples of our cultural environment. Now we have what we call components and the environment. When we say components of the environment, what do we mean? We said the environment is made up of two main components. These are the biotic and the abiotic components. Let's look at this biotic and abiotic components. First, we start with the biotic components. These are the living things, that is, plants and animals in the environment, and they are grouped into three: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Remember, biotic components include living things, that is, plants and animals. We have, among these three groups, that's producers, consumers, and decomposers, we have the producers, which are also known as autotrophs. These are green plants and some microorganisms. Why are they called autotrophs? They manufacture their own food from simple inorganic material through the process of photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process where green plants manufacture their food in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight, while chemosynthesis is where these microorganisms, some of these microorganisms produce their own food. Next, we have consumers, which are also known as heterotrophs, which includes animals and some plants. The human being is under this group. They cannot manufacture their food, therefore they depend on the producers for their food. Consumers may be primary, secondary, or tertiary. Primary consumers are those that feed directly on plant. Secondary and tertiary is where the level graduates. Some feed on some animals feed on other animals, while some animals feed on both plants and animals, like the human being. Meanwhile, we have some plants that feed on some animals, like insects. Then the third group is the decomposers. These are bacteria and fungi which break down dead plants and animals in order to feed on them, and in the process, nutrients are released to the soil for use by the producers. When you have dead plants and animals and then they start to decay, this is activities of decomposers. They break down the remains of dead plants and animals, and they release these nutrients, because dead plants and animals contain some nutrients, like we have when you talk about nutrient cycle, they emphasize water, hydrogen cycle, carbon cycle. All these things will be emphasized more, and you'll find out where these nutrients are released by decomposers. Now, that is that for the biotic factors. We'll look at the abiotic components of the environment. We said these are non-living components of an ecosystem. Remember, the biotic components are the living parts of the ecosystem, while the abiotic are the non-living components. They include: one, climatic factors consisting of factors like temperature, wind, humidity, sunlight, and rainfall. 2, they include inorganic materials and nutrients like oxygen, nitrogen, carbon 4 oxide, calcium, and phosphorus. These are minerals or nutrients that are important in the environment. Number 3, we have edaphic factors like soils, rocks, and topography. Topography refers to the landform. 4, we have other factors like dust storms, fire, and water. When we say dust storms, when we have strong winds and you have dust blowing everywhere, it is common in the Sahara region because of the presence of the desert. Interaction among the components of the ecosystem. The ecosystem is another name for the environment. When we talk about interaction, it's like when you relate one person to another, when we're dealing with human beings, there's also interaction in the ecosystem. Man has uses for some components of the ecosystem, so man benefits from it, and the ecosystem also benefits from man. So we're going to look at how these benefits are derived. We said there is a unique interaction among the various components of the ecosystem. 1, green plants use carbon 4 oxide, water, and chlorophyll in the presence of sunlight to produce carbohydrates or starch through the process of photosynthesis. That is the process they use to manufacture their food. 2, animals feed on these carbohydrates in plants and release carbon 4 oxide for plants to take in. I take it again. Animals feed on these carbohydrates in plants and they release carbon 4 oxide for the plants to take in. So when animals take in carbohydrates, they release carbon 4 oxide. Remember, carbon 4 oxide is what these plants use to manufacture their food through photosynthesis. Number 3, microorganisms and other decomposers break down dead plants and animals to release nutrients to the soil. Microorganisms and other decomposers break down dead plants and animals to release nutrients to the soil. Already you can see it from plants to animals, from animals to the soil. That is from producers to consumers to decomposers. 4, these nutrients are absorbed by plants for use in food production. Number 5, plants give out oxygen during photosynthesis, which is used by animals for their respiration. So when you look at it, we have a circle where plants use carbon 4 oxide to manufacture their food, which includes carbohydrate. And plants take in this food and release carbon 4 oxide during respiration. Now, we'll look at domains of the environment. When we say domains, we are talking about regions that are characterized by a specific factor or a grouping that is done based on similar characteristics. Now, the environment has domains. I'll be looking at the main domains of the environment. That means there are more, but we'll be looking at the 4 main domains. We'll look at them briefly. They include 1, the lithosphere. When we say lithosphere, we're referring to the solid part of the earth, or what we call the crust. It involves the soils, the rocks, basically in simple terms, the land. Number 2 is the hydrosphere. From the word hydro, we're referring to water. So any water body in the environment is referred to as hydrosphere. Number 3 is the atmosphere. Atmosphere is the gaseous portion of the environment. And finally, the biosphere. When we say biosphere, we're referring to the portion of the environment that contains plants and animals. Now, we'll look at problems facing the environment. We have several problems. These are problems that we face every day. We have 1, environmental pollution. This refers to the presence of hazardous materials in the environment. Environmental pollution can be air pollution, noise pollution. There are several types of pollution. When we have number 2, deforestation. When we say deforestation, we're talking about the loss of vegetation cover, particularly trees in an environment. Number 3, we have soil erosion, which is the washing away of the topsoil, thereby causing the land not to be suitable for agricultural purposes. Number 4 is population explosion. Now, the population generally increased drastically with the Industrial Revolution, where healthcare was increased, agricultural practices were improved, so there was more food to feed the growing population. Number 5 is global warming. Global warming, we hear of global warming everywhere, how we said the ice caps are melting, there's more water, there's no balance in the environment. 6 is climate change, which is closely linked with global warming. And then 7, we have desert encroachment. With persistent deforestation, we have the area becoming desert land where the soil is no longer fertile or suitable for the cultivation of crops. Now, what is the importance of this environment? This is where we live and strive. How is it important to us? The best way to look at this importance is to look at it through the 4 domains. We'll start by looking at the importance of the lithosphere. There's several importance, but we'll just take a few for purpose of emphasis. Number 1, for lithosphere, it forms the basis of all human settlements. Remember, we said the lithosphere is a solid portion of the earth. So if you want to build a house, it has to be on the lithosphere. So for humans to settle, we don't settle on water, we settle on land. Number 2, all mineral resources are derived from the lithosphere. What are these mineral resources? We have gold, we have petroleum, all these are on the lithosphere. Number 3, all farming activities are carried out on the lithosphere. 4, it aids transportation through construction of roads, railways, and airports. Our roads, our railways, our airports are constructed on land. And 5, most human activities like mining, trading, etc. are carried out there, that is on the lithosphere. Let's look at the next domain, which is the hydrosphere. How is the hydrosphere important? 1, it provides water for domestic and industrial use. We say water sustains life. Everything you do, you need water. So that is one of the major importance of the hydrosphere. 2, it is used in agriculture, either through rain or irrigation. Farming activities continues whether it is rainy season or dry season. During the rainy season, we have the rainfall. During the dry season, we use water from different sources of the hydrosphere to irrigate our land. Number 3, it provides food like fish and prawns. These are sea animals that we consume as food. Number 4, it is a medium of transportation. We have water transportation, either by boats or by big ships. Number 5, it is also used to generate electricity that is hydroelectricity. Electricity that is generated through water. And we have the Kainji Lake and Shiroro Lake in Nigeria for generation of hydroelectricity. For the third domain, which is the atmosphere, one, it provides oxygen for animal and plant respiration. Oxygen is very important for plant and animal respiration. Number two, it provides carbon dioxide for photosynthesis by plants. All these, remember we said the atmosphere is the gaseous portion of the surrounding or the environment. Number three, it is the habitat for some living organisms. So we'll say, how can living organisms live in the atmosphere? Those that fly have their habitat in the atmosphere. Four, it contains the ozone layer, which acts as a protective cover for living organisms against the burning effects of ultraviolet rays of the sun. The ozone layer is a combination of gases that form a thick covering so that we do not receive the direct rays of the sun. You have people, times we hear people having skin cancer in some regions of the world. That is because they've been exposed to direct sunlight. The purpose of the ozone layer is to prevent us from having direct contact with the rays of the sun. And five, it provides oxygen for combustion or burning. Burning or combustion cannot take place without the presence of oxygen, and this oxygen is gotten from the atmosphere. And finally, for the fourth domain, we have the biosphere. One, plants in the biosphere provide food for man. Two, it provides raw materials like timber, hide and skin, cotton, etc. for our industries. Three, they are a source of energy like firewood. Firewood is gotten from trees, and trees are part of the biosphere. Four, activities within the biosphere provide employment. We have different kinds of farming. We can't just say farming. There's several types. There's fish farming, there's agriculture, there's specialized agriculture. If you go deeply into that, you hear so many terms being used to describe agriculture. Five, it aids the balancing and purification of atmospheric gases through respiration and photosynthesis. Now, when we talk about balancing and purification of atmospheric gases, if you have an environment that has green plants, especially trees, and the one that doesn't have green plants, you notice there's a difference even in the air quality. So the biosphere is very important for the balancing and purification of our atmospheric gases. Now, with this, we've come to the end of our lesson for today. Remember what we did today? We were able to define the environment. We also mentioned the components of the environment, which is the biotic and the abiotic components of our environment. And we said to study the environment better, we have to look at it through the domains, and we mentioned the 4 domains: the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the biosphere, and the lithosphere. And we also looked at the problems facing our environment, which includes desert encroachment, flooding, and so on. And then finally, we're able to look at the importance of the environment through the different domains. That's the 4 main domains that we had mentioned. But before we go, we'll give you an assignment. Now, the assignment has 3 questions. The first question says, what is an environment? What is an environment? 2, list the main domains of the environment. List the main domains of the environment. 3, observe and identify the environment as physical, social, and cultural. Observe and identify the environment as physical, social, and cultural. For the purpose of submission of your assignments, or if you're making any inquiries, you can reach me on the number 080-6226-1602. I take the number again, 080-6226-1602. For further studies, you can use the textbook, Essential Geography for Senior Secondary School by O.A. Iwena. Remember to keep learning and to stay safe. Thank you and see you next time. Bye-bye.